Hey everyone, Wrecker here with another guide for the First Descendant, this time featuring Hailey. First, let me thank everyone who took the time to comment, like and give feedback on my first guide video. The response has been incredibly positive and helps me a lot coming up with new ideas to increase the quality to match your expectations. Hailey is the newest addition to the available Descendants in the game and the perfect choice to pulverize every single boss with her devastating skill toolkit. The builds in this video guide focus on drawing out her current highest damage potential, while we don't have access to any Transcendence mods for her as of yet. If you're looking for a Descendant hitting up to 31 million raw devastative damage in a single shot while being able to allocate most of it to either skill or gun focused damage depending on your encounter's resistance and dev stats, this guide is for you. Since most of Hailey's damage is heavily dependent on the primarily used gun and its loadout, this guide will also have a dedicated gun section at the very start. Let's get into it. The Piercing Light Sniper Rifle is Hailey's best in slot gun, since the gun damage portion of her skill Zenith is based off your main firearm attack value. You might also use the Afterglow Sword Sniper Rifle, which is very close but can't beat the Piercing Light. Differences between these two is around 12% of total damage output. As with most maxed out builds in the game, you will need to heavily invest into either one of these, making them ultimate tools of destruction in Hailey's hands. Don't worry, Catalization and mod setup is exactly the same for both. Rifling Reinforcement and Action and Reaction are pretty much no-brainers, since both boost Firearm ATK by 93%, thus providing the mandatory base damage boost. Better Insight, Better Concentration, and Concentration Priority are used to increase critical hit rate and critical hit damage. There is no need to slot Edging Shot, since the gun features very high base crit rate and will already max out at 100% critical hit rate when having fully stacked Hailey's Cold Fury. In addition, it would also lower the total Firearm ATK, so this mod is an absolute no-go for the weapon kit. Weak Point Sight and Focus Fire will give an additional 57% more weak point damage, skyrocketing the 2x weak point base multi on the Piercing Light. For the last weak point mod, either go with Weak Point Expansion or Special Sight. Weak Point Expansion gives a gigantic 140% weak point damage on your first weak point shot, while Special Sight reduces your movement speed by 30% while aiming, but providing all your shots with 30% additional weak point damage. Let's quickly compare both mods. In most cases, Weak Point Expansion provides more value since your first shot will most likely immobilize bosses, thus triggering Dangerous Ambush, giving you a huge boost to the skill portion of Hailey's Zenith. In addition, most bosses only require fewer shots than 5, making Weak Point Expansion superior over Special Sight. Special Sight, however, provides more damage than Weak Point Expansion in case more than 5 shots are fired. With the rounds 6 to 8, Special Sight scales to 180, 210 and 240% total damage increase over all shots, thus making it the better choice if you manage to land continuous weak point hits with your gun. Since every shot will be increased by 30% weak point damage, this mod then outscales Weak Point Expansion's 140% due to its 10-second cooldown in a prolonged fight. Both mods have their specific use cases, so use either one depending on how you perceive the encounter. Fortunately, both are Malachite, so you can switch freely whenever needed. For the last two mod slots, go for Expand Weapon Charge and Maximize Weight Balance, since the 79% max size directly translates to the amount of bullets available during Hailey's Zenith. Rolls on this gun can be a little bit tricky, since Hailey's Zenith only features a 4-round baseline. To double that, mods, external components, and the rolls on the gun are needed to provide a full 100% max size increase. I highly recommend resetting rolls on the Piercing Light entirely and keep re-rolling until you get the only viable roll for a total of 8 shots, 12% rounds per magazine. Even 11.9 does not work. This will save you precious materials in the long term, since all other values don't need to be fully maxed out, but this one does. The only other roll I logged while still going for the 12% rounds per magazine on my Piercing Light was damage to Colossi when it hit 30k plus, since you rarely see a roll that high. After these two are finished, go for additional Firearm ATK and critical hit damage, since these provide the highest damage increase. Critical hit rate is simply not needed, since the Piercing Light is already at 100% in Hailey's Cold Fury when fully stacked. With the 79% from mods, 12% from rolls, and 9% from the Slayer set, Hailey's Zenith finally gets a total of 100% max size, not only providing you with a total of 8 rounds, but also decreasing the cooldown of her Zenith in case you need to cancel it. More bullets remaining means shortened cooldown. With the Piercing Light covered, let's move on to Hailey's setup. This guide features two specific builds for Hailey. Both builds hit evenly hard for 31 million total raw damage. However, this damage is split between the gun damage portion and the skill damage portion. Both builds will provide more or less damage depending on the encounter's defense and resistances. For now, the Glacial cannon build will provide higher damage in all encounters except Gluttony, since the ratio of damage is 1/3 skill damage and 2/3 gun damage. Gluttony features skill and crit resistance, therefore making skill damage almost useless in this fight. We don't know if we will see more encounters with this trait, so I highly encourage prepping accordingly. The Railgun's build ratio of damage features less skill damage but a significantly higher gun portion of damage, giving it more viability in the Gluttony fight, and on highly resistant encounters to cold damage like Deadbright and Frostwalker for instance. Since damage output on these two is very similar on both builds, I suggest using Glacial Cannon since it provides way more tankiness and does not require specific preparation. On the Glacial Cannon build, start with HP amplification for tankiness. Don't care too much about shields since Hailey's shield base is very low anyways. Nimble Fingers and MP conversion will provide a huge reduction on cooldown, giving you access to Zenith every 11 seconds if you fire all of your shots. It will be even lower if some remain while you cancel the ability. Since Hailey's Storm Snare can hit very hard, exceeding 20 million damage, it's also good to keep a low cooldown on this one as well, currently 19 seconds. Skill concentration, emergency measures, and front lines will provide lots of skill crit hit rate and damage. Shield Specialist and Shot Focus both increase the base damage output, while the minus 15% skill power modifier on Shot Focus is a negative stat. It doesn't bother as much since the skill power modifiers on Hailey's Storm Snare and Zenith are incredibly high. It's less than 1%. This is also the reason why boosting any skill power modifiers would just be a waste of mod slot. Dangerous Ambush boosts skill damage in group content when you're not targeted and gives an enormous skill damage boost when the boss is immobilized or downed. In solo encounters, bosses will rarely require more than one shot to be immobilized, so it's also the best option here. Lastly, you can either use Spear and Shield for additional tankiness, or slot Skill Insight to jump from 86 to 100% skill crit hit rate if you really can't stand not critting for the skill portion of your damage on rare occasions. Keep in mind, this only affects the skill crits. Raw gun damage will always be 100% crit rate with a fully stacked Cold Fury. The reactor needs to feature your weapon mounting for the additional 60%, chill and singular skill power boost ratios, and most importantly, a gold roll of additional skill ATK when attacking Colossi. For the other roll, singular skill power boost ratio will give you the highest additional damage since it increases a small value of 0.2 by up to 40%. Skill critical hit damage would be the second best in slot, followed by chill skill power boost ratio. Either of the three is fine, only continue farming if you really want to min-max. For the external components, go for the Slayer set as it provides a significant damage boost to your skill power while also providing the missing 9% max size to achieve 8 rounds during Zenith. Auxiliary power needs a high max HP roll for tankiness. Most viable second roll is MP recovery out of combat, but it's not necessary. Sensor's best in slot is max MP and MP recovery in combat. Memory's best in slot is def and MP recovery modifier or shield recovery in combat. Processors should give at least some shield and provide increased shield recovery. With the latest patch, the Inversion Reinforcement got added to the game. On the one end, it's kind of sad to only have a few viable options in here. On the other, these few options provide a good increase of survivability and ease of mana management, thus making building easier by ignoring mana costs entirely. I highly recommend unlocking all mana-related nodes, Neural Focus Augmentation in the Hunt tree, Selective Neurostimulation in the Survival tree, and Arc Peacemaker in the Season tree first. After that, unlock Hunts and Survival's special traits, providing you with incoming damage modifiers, enhancing tankiness. All kills seen at the start of this guide video were done using this build. I even tested 2-man boss scalings and most of them can be done in 7 to 9 seconds, utilizing only the damage done by this build on Hailey while the other party member didn't do anything. As you can see, this build will hit close to 30 million damage with Zenith. Storm Snare also hits 28.7 million, thus making it an amazing opener or finisher depending on when you want to use it. Back to Hailey's mod setup. First, be advised that the Railgun build, at least as of yet, has a very limited specific use scenario and might only interest speed kill enthusiasts and pre-made groups in the community. However, I didn't want to leave this option out of my build guide. Since its mod setup is very similar, I will only emphasize on the changes. Swap HP amplification and dangerous ambush. Instead, go with Walker Tightrope, which gives a huge boost to Firearm ATK when below 50% life. To meet this condition, also slot Conditional Recharge, which consumes HP every time a skill is used until it cannot consume 17.5% of max HP again. Gun and Reactor are the same as on the Glacial Cannon build, however the external components will change from Slayer to Annihilation set. Same as for the Slayer set, Auxiliary Power needs a high max HP roll for tankiness. Most viable second role is MP recovery out of combat, but it's not necessary. Sensor best in slot is max MP and MP recovery in combat. Memory best in slot is def and MP recovery modifier or shield recovery in combat. Processor should at least give some shield and provide increased shield recovery. Due to the change to the Annihilation set, Hailey's Zenith will now only feature 7 bullets instead of 8. However, if the conditions are met, Firearm ATK increases tremendously. For the Inversion Reinforcement, I use the same preset shown before on pretty much all of my Descendants at the moment. Since the gameplay loop actually needs some preparation, I'll explain it rather quick. Spam Cold Fury to diminish your HP to meet Walker Tightrope and Annihilation's conditions. Activate Cold Fury, activate Zenith. Just before the first shot, spam Cryo Round to apply Cryo, which gives an additional 50% damage proc on the gun damage portion. This will be indicated by the white number, which is based on your initial gun damage portion hit. Due to its based off nature, it cannot crit, and it will never be based off your skill damage portion. As you can see, hitting with this build changes some numbers. The raw gun damage portion is increased to almost 15 million, featuring an extra 7.5 million cryo hit. However, the skill damage portion hit went down to only 8 million, thus hitting for a total of 30.5 million damage. Storm Snare's damage also went down to 19.6 million. Keep in mind, this build is only used on bosses with very high cold resistance, skill resistance, or crit resistance, since raw gun damage really is the only option on these encounters. That's it. I hope you liked the build. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe, or catch me live on Twitch soon. Until next time, Rekka.